A Princess Margaret Hospital doctor dies and 2 others fall sick in suspected E. coli infections. An announcement that Kai Tak Sports Park will officially open at 6:30 p.m. on March 1st. And Donald Trump raises tariffs on steel and aluminum imports to a flat 25%. Good evening and thank you for joining us. 3 doctors at Princess Margaret Hospital were suspected to have been infected with Shiga toxin-producing E. coli. One of them died 3 days after developing symptoms. The deceased doctor was reportedly around 30 years old. More details about the infection cluster came to light from the Center for Health Protection in its late afternoon press conference. It said the case was reported to the center on Monday. The 3 doctors working at the oncology department of Princess Margaret Hospital began experiencing symptoms including fever, abdominal pain and diarrhea on the 4th, 6th and 10th of this month respectively. The doctor who first displayed such symptoms was admitted to hospital last Thursday. He was already in serious condition, having a high fever with low blood pressure and low blood oxygen saturation level. He passed away the following day. The 2 other doctors had milder symptoms. One of them tested positive for Shiga toxin-producing E. coli. The other 2 doctors, including the deceased, tested negative. CHP said they are tracking the source of infection. While the trio did not dine at the same restaurant, they all used the 6th-floor lounge at the hospital, including the work area and toilet there. Authorities have collected over 60 samples for analysis and are investigating whether the patients consumed any infected food or whether the environment was contaminated by the bacteria. Dr. Albert Au, head of the Communicable Disease Branch of the Center for Health Protection, said the 3 infected doctors all work for the oncology department, so the source of infection was unlikely the hospital restaurant, which would have led to more cases across different departments. Professor Yun Kwok-yong, chair of infectious diseases of the Department of Microbiology at the University of Hong Kong, said it's rare that infection of Shiga toxin-producing E. coli will lead to fatalities involving a healthy person, and more investigations are underway. CHP said the annual tallies of Shiga toxin-producing E. coli infections are between 0 and 6. Most infections are related to the consumption of contaminated food or water, including raw or undercooked meat, especially ground meat. Feces, contaminated fruit and vegetable, as well as unpasteurized dairy products can also be the sources of infection. Acting Chief Executive Eric Chan today said a large ceremony will be held at Kai Tak Sports Park on March 1st to celebrate the opening of the venue. Local TV stations and the state-run CCTV will broadcast the event. Mil Seng-ai reports.
After a series of trial events, Kai Tak Sports Park will officially open on the first day of March. To mark the occasion, the government will hold a ceremony in the main stadium at 6:30 that evening. Speaking to the media on Tuesday, Acting Chief Executive Eric Chan revealed some details of the celebration, including themed shows that portray the city's development.
Then performers will come from all generations and age groups. There will be representatives from the sports and cultural sector and art sector.
Speaking of the tourism sector's performance over the Lunar New Year period, Chan called the overall situation encouraging. About 1.4 million visitors arrived in the city. During the past weekend, Director of the Hong Kong and Macau Affairs Office Xia Baolong inspected the Shenzhen-Hong Kong Technology Zone in Hetao. Chan said the administration had reported to Xia the SAR's economic situation and that the director expressed concern about the city.
And he also directed that we should try our very best to integrate into the mainland's national policies, especially the Greater Bay Area initiative. I think this is very important to Hong Kong.
TVB News.
Suspected ticketing blunders related to ComplexCon, a global streetwear and pop cultural festival to be held in Hong Kong. The Cultural Jamboree is funded by the government's Mega Arts and Cultural Events Fund. Asia World Expo is slated to host the event for 3 consecutive days starting on March 21st. Single-day tickets went on sale yesterday and are priced between $988 and $1,788. Some buyers say K-pop girl group NJZ, formerly known as New Jeans, is supposed to perform on March 23rd. But after payment, the ticket purchase for March 23rd shows the ticket date has been altered to March 21st. Some ticket holders left messages on the organizer's social media page, but received no responses. CityLine, a ticketing platform, said, according to the system log records, no abnormalities were found. It said customers can send an email and provide detailed transaction information to help with the investigations. U.S. President Donald Trump on Tuesday unleashed 25% tariffs on all steel and aluminum imports. The measures, due to go into effect in March, have stirred up a renewed bout of discontent among the country's trading partners. Trump also said U.S. tariffs on autos, semiconductors, and pharmaceuticals are in the pipeline. Danny Zhou reports.
Sitting in the Oval Office, Donald Trump signed proclamations to raise tariffs on steel and aluminium products to a flat 25%, a move that he hopes can bring production and jobs back to the U.S.
It's a big deal. It's a big deal. This is the beginning of making America rich again. We were being pummeled by both friend and foe alike. Our nation requires steel and aluminum to be made in America, not in foreign land.
The move is a step up from Trump's 2018 tariffs of 25% on steel and 10% on aluminium. A White House official noted exemptions for several countries had eroded the effectiveness of previous tariffs. This time, the levies would target all countries, with Trump removing country-specific exemptions and duty-free quota agreements. Canada, US's top supplier of the metals, will all but certain be the hardest hit. The country's outgoing Prime Minister Justin Trudeau called the measure unacceptable. He said his country would seek to highlight the tariff's negative impact and respond strongly and firmly if needed. Meanwhile, U.S. tariff exemption for Australian metal exports is under consideration after a phone call between Trump and the Australian leader. Trump said it's partly because Australia is one of the few countries that the U.S. has a surplus with.
I presented Australia's case for an exemption, and we agreed on wording to say publicly, which is that the US President agreed that an exemption was under consideration in the interests of both of our countries.
Trump's steel and aluminium tariffs 2.0 are likely to continue the unsettled dispute between Brussels and Washington following the suspension of duties imposed by Trump during his first presidency. The European Commission slammed the fresh tariffs as unlawful and counterproductive, while foreign ministers of France and Spain have vowed to defend their interests. Ursula von der Leyen, president of the European Commission, will soon hold a meeting with U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance on the margins of the AI Action Summit in Paris. Danny Zhou, TVB News.
U.S. President Donald Trump said he has spoken to President Xi Jinping since taking office on January 20th, but did not offer details on their conversation. Trump made the comments in an interview with a U.S. network. He said he spoke to Xi and his people, adding they have a very good personal relationship. Trump declined to offer details on when exactly the call happened or what was discussed. Last week, Trump said he was in no hurry to speak to Xi to try to defuse trade tensions between the world's two largest economies. The White House and the Foreign Ministry had yet to respond to a request for comment, Reuters said. Trump and Xi had spoken just before Trump took office in January and discussed issues such as TikTok, trade, and Taiwan. China imposed targeted tariffs on U.S. imports last week in response to Trump's additional 10% duty on Chinese goods. U.S. President Donald Trump has issued an ultimatum to Hamas. Trump says all hostages must be released by Saturday or the Gaza ceasefire will be cancelled. Hamas says Trump is complicating matters. The group stating it will not free any more hostages because Israel has breached the agreement. David Garrett reports.
Delay that, sir.
Questions hanging over the faltering Gaza ceasefire. Hamas refusing to return hostages.
I would say this, and I'm going to let that because that's Israel's decision, but as far as I'm concerned, if all of the hostages aren't returned by Saturday at 12 o'clock, I think it's an appropriate time. I would say cancel it and all bets are off and let hell break out.
Hamas say the language of threats has no value. The group maintains it won't release captives until further notice. It blames Israel for delaying the return of displaced people, targeting them with shelling and failing to allow enough aid into Gaza. The appearance of the 3 hostages released over the weekend seems to have changed the narrative.
They're emaciated. It looked like something out of the 1930s. It's an absolute disgrace. And I think they saw the way the world viewed it, and they're looking for a reason not to send more because they're all. You take a look at that. It looks like it was a concentration camp, which essentially it was.
The Israeli military says 86-year-old hostage Shlomo Mansour is dead. Thought to have been the oldest living captive, new Israeli intelligence reports now say Hamas killed him and took his body into Gaza in October 2023. Protests continued this morning in Israel. These people want all hostages released now. These demonstrators briefly blocked a major highway and let off orange smoke. Overnight, crowds gathered in Tel Aviv after hearing that Hamas was pausing releases. This campaign group urging Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to fix the situation. There is a lot of public pressure on Netanyahu to move forward with this deal and bring home the remaining hostages as soon as possible. Tears from those listening, and a weeping mother, Idit Ohel, whose son Alon is a prisoner of Hamas on his 24th birthday. Applause from the crowd who won't give up.
The hostages are in a clear and present danger. Their lives are at risk. We saw the horror pictures of the released hostages. Those who are still in there may be in worse conditions. They simply don't have time.
In Gaza, fear is the overriding emotion, with Israel's military put on the highest alert. Palestinians fear the fragile truce will fall apart. Some agree with Hamas's decision because they say they are not getting the basic aid promised. These people desperately scramble after a drop-off from an aid truck, stockpiling and waiting to see if war returns. David Garrett, TVB News.
Donald Trump has signed an executive order to ban federal use of paper straws. The president wants to go back to plastic. This move flies in the face of the green policies of many places, including here in Hong Kong. Paper straws easily decompose, making them better for the environment. Trump's predecessor, Joe Biden, tried to phase out single-use plastic. Trump dismissed that plan, saying paper straws don't work.
We're going back to plastic straws. These things don't work. I've had them many times, and on occasion they break, they explode. If something's hot, they don't last very long, like a matter of minutes, sometimes a matter of seconds. It's a ridiculous situation. So we're going back to plastic straws. I think it's okay. And I don't think that plastic's going to affect a shark very much as they're munching their way through the ocean. Okay.
And still ahead, Hong Kong Post resumes accepting parcels destined for the U.S. Fraud cases account for almost half of the crime reports received by the police last year. And Hong Kong Tramways proposes raising adult fares to $3.30. Welcome back. Starting today, Hong Kong Post will again accept packages destined for the United States, describing the U.S. postal policies as constantly changing and unreasonable. The Hong Kong government said it will launch a protest against such actions with the World Trade Organization. Last Wednesday, Hong Kong Post halted its acceptance of U.S.-bound parcels for 6 days. This post office in Central has posted a notice indicating that the service has resumed. Postal workers estimate it will now take 2 to 7 days for parcels to be shipped to the U.S. That is on par with the previous duration, though postal staff noted there might be delays. An e-commerce company reported delays in the delivery of their goods. Fortunately, they did not incur financial losses.
Uncertainty is very disruptive, but customers are pretty understanding. Hong Kong Post is generally very responsible about making sure that deliveries get to our customers on time, and we really appreciate it.
Meanwhile, other experts said the circumstances are still unclear and have held off plans to send their packages to the U.S. for now. The Hong Kong Postal Workers Union estimates the U.S. Customs currently has a huge backlog of shipments to be handled, with the processing time being twice as long. The union advises delaying shipments unless urgent.
4個字去形容咧，就係朝令夕改。
Acting Chief Executive Chan Kwok-Kee described the actions from Washington as erratic and confusing. He says such actions have caused much inconvenience, and Hong Kong will continue protesting at the World Trade Organization over the unreasonable arrangements, which have also disregarded Hong Kong's status as a separate customs territory. Last week, the U.S. Postal Service announced a suspension in the acceptance of packages from mainland China and Hong Kong. Then, 12 hours later, a policy U-turn as Washington announced operations would partially resume while they study the introduction of a new tariff mechanism. The U.S. also temporarily canceled the de minimis exemption, which allows packages worth $800 or less to enter the country duty-free, before a policy turnaround to postpone the suspension of the exemption. Police say almost half of the 94,000 crime cases they recorded last year were fraud cases. The Mo Sing-ai reports.
Police revealed at a press conference that they recorded about 94,000 crime cases in 2024, a 5% increase year-on-year. Among them, 44,000 were fraud cases, with 60% being online scams. While the police said the number of such cases had increased by 12% from the previous year, the force said the financial losses incurred had dropped by $30 million. More than 10,000 people were arrested on suspicion of scamming and money laundering. 73% of the suspects were stooge account holders. Meanwhile, a drop in the number of other crime cases, including homicide, robbery, and assault. The police said they had installed 650 sets of CCTV by the end of last year, and they will aim to increase that figure to 2,000 this year.
The newly installed CCTVs, they've helped the police to detect 122 cases involving homicide, burglaries, and robberies. The CCTVs also helped us to arrest 202 persons.
Last month, the police announced the application of rapid test kits to tackle the issue of space oil drug consumption. So far, the force has detected 5 cases using the new method.
Some wonder if the use of test kits would drive the use of space oil underground. That may happen, but we also have intelligence-led operations to address that problem.
Seal also said 316 people have been arrested since the implementation of the Hong Kong National Security Law and the Safeguarding National Security Ordinance, with the prosecution rate being 60%. Ms. 9, TVB News.
2 Philippine nationals were arrested for trying to withdraw $10 billion at an HSBC branch with forged documents. It is understood that the lawyer is involved in the case. Reportedly, a male lawyer and a businesswoman aged 68 and 38 respectively arrived at the HSBC Premier Center in Central at 5 p.m. on Monday. The pair requested a withdrawal of $10 billion or about 78 billion Hong Kong dollars, with 3 suspected forged letters of credit, which are payment guarantee documents issued by banks for buyers. The bank staff found the documents suspicious and called the police. After further investigation, 3 more suspected accomplices were arrested on suspicion of using false instruments. Hong Kong Tramways has proposed raising adult fares to $3.30 from its current $3, saying passenger volume has yet to return to pre-pandemic levels. Under the proposal submitted by the tram's operator, concessionary fares for children and between 3 and 12 will rise to $1.60 from $1.50. For elderly residents above 65 years old, fares will increase to $1.50 from $1.30. The price of monthly tickets will remain unchanged at $260. The price hike application will be discussed at the Legislative Council next week and will need approval by the Chief Executive and the Executive Council. And that's the news. Thank you for watching.